Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's web seminar. It's still about a minute before 10 o'clock, and people are continuing to log on. So I might give it another minute, and then we'll get started shortly. Good morning, everybody. We still have quite a few people logging on right now, so I'm going to give it about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to get started. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's webinar, California College Pathways Rapid Response Program. We're going to go ahead and get started. We can go to the next slide. I'm going to start with just some technical details. So the PowerPoint that we're going to be using today has been uploaded as a handout on your control panel. So if you click there, you can see that you can download a PDF of the PowerPoint. So if you want to download it and print it out and follow it along that way, you're welcome to do that. In addition, you should see on your control panel the questions panel. So this is where you will have an opportunity to send any questions that you have during the webinar. You can type your question and click send. We will be doing all questions at the end. But you should feel free to send them at any point during the web seminar. And finally, the presentation materials and recording of today's web seminar will be posted on our website, jba4youth.org. Anybody who registered for the webinar will also get a follow-up email from me later today with a copy of the slides and a link to the recording. So we can go to the next slide. So I am Debbie Rauscher. I'm the Education Director with John Burton Advocates for Youth, and I am very excited to be joined today by a couple of folks from our partner organization in this effort, Together We Rise. So we've got Gianna Dahlia and Mario Gonzalez, and you'll be hearing from both of them a little bit later. Next slide. So I want to start by saying a huge thank you to the funding partners who have made this effort possible. Conrad and Hilton Foundation, Stewart Foundation, a donor-advised fund aligned with the RISA Foundation and the ECMC Foundation. And I want to give a particular shout out to the Stewart Foundation. They really spearheaded this whole effort and were really the force behind everything that we're able to do and what we're going to be talking about here today. So big thank you to them and all of the other funding partners. Next slide. So we are here today to talk about the California College Pathways COVID-19 Rapid Response Fund. As way of introduction, in terms of what this is, the purpose of this is to provide access to flexible resources to quickly address challenges presented by COVID-19 that threaten a foster youth's ability to transition to and through college. So we know that foster youth are being dramatically impacted right now by the coronavirus crisis and the accompanying economic shutdown. We know a lot of them are struggling with a lot of very basic needs like housing, food, access to technology, transportation, healthcare, and other emergency needs. And so the funding partners have come together to create this program to try to address some of these needs specifically for foster youth who are participating in college. You know, that's really the focus of our work, California College Pathways, is ensuring that foster youth have what they need in place to be successful in college. This is an extension of that goal. So as we kind of walk through eligibility and such for the resources that are being made available, you will see that is the target population. So it is individuals who have been in the foster care system and specifically those who are connected to post-secondary education. Next slide. And I'm going to say a lot more about the specifics of that as we go along. So I wanted to say also kind of as introduction, just the different partners that are participating in that program. So my organization, John Burton Advocates for Youth, Together We Rise, and then you, which we are referring to you as the referring agency. And again, I'm going to get into a lot more details, but this is really structured to wrap around foster youth with adult supporters at a number of different levels. And this is, we have never done anything like this before. I think that there's many things that are happening right now that are brand new to lots of people given the unprecedented nature of the times that we are living in. So we have done our best to create a structure that we think is workable and is going to ensure that the funds that are available be put to their best use. And it involves these three different partners, and it's a bit of an experiment. And so, you know, we're gonna see how it goes, and we appreciate your patience and flexibility as this launches and moves along. So if we can go to the next slide. So fund structure. So big picture, how this is going to work is that organizations will first apply to become an authorized referrer. So first thing I want to be clear about is that individual students will not be self-referring to this fund. Organizations that have been approved and are authorized to make referrals to the fund will be how this fund works. So the first step is that if you are an agency that qualifies to be able to make referrals, meaning that you work with the target population and you can comply with the various structures that we've put in place, you're going to apply to become an authorized referrer. Once you're approved as an authorized referrer, you then refer students to Together We Rise. Together We Rise is the entity that's going to be administering the fund and providing the accompanying services. So they'll be the ones to provide the assistance to the student. And the reason that we decided to structure it this way is that we really wanted to leverage the existing CCP infrastructure. We have this phenomenal network of campus support programs and other nonprofit organizations that provide additional support to college students going to college. And so we wanted to ensure that young people have as many adults as possible in their life, really wrapping services around them as part of this. And the partnership aspect of this is really key. And so the resources that are being made available through this fund are short-term. And we know that a lot of these students are going to need support in a lot of different ways beyond just financial support for a longer period of time. And so by having referrals come through authorized agencies, it allows us to make sure that these students are really linked into the necessary support that they're going to need for the long term. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to jump into the nitty-gritty. So first of all, who is eligible to receive support from this program? First, current or former foster youth residing in California. So the fund is limited to individuals who have been in the foster care system. So we know there are other populations with high level of need, unaccompanied homeless youth, there's immigrant populations, we recognize that, but this fund is specifically for current and former foster youth. There's no age cap, and there's no restriction about when a youth was in care. So they don't have to have been in care after 13 or after 16. As long as they were in the foster care system at some point, they are eligible to be referred to the program. Second, they have to be either a current college student or a student who's transitioning into college for the summer or fall. In terms of a student who's transitioning, they can be either a high school senior who's in the process of transitioning into college for the fall, or they can be a student who is not in high school currently, maybe who's been out of school for some period of time, but who is enrolled in college for the fall or for the summer. If a student was enrolled for the spring term and they drop their classes because of coronavirus, they are still eligible for the fund as long as they are planning to re-enroll either for the next term, the summer or the fall. There is no minimum unit requirement, and there's no academic standard in terms of grades they have to be making or anything like that. There's also no requirement that the youth has to have been previously participating in the Foster Youth Campus Support Program. So we see this potentially as an opportunity for foster youth who might be enrolled in college who weren't participating in the campus support program previously as a way for them to engage in that support. So, you obviously can refer students who are active in your program, but if a foster youth comes to you who wasn't active in your program, there is no restriction as long as they then are going to be engaging with you moving forward. So the next criteria is that the request addresses a challenge that, if not addressed, threatens to disrupt a foster youth post-secondary education. So, and I'll kind of combine this with the next one, which is that other public and private resources are not available to address the immediate need. So this is a fund, it's limited. We don't have an unlimited amount of money that's available, and we want the money to be used in a way that really serves youth with the highest level of need, and also that is really an emergency situation that, if not addressed, will disrupt their ability to stay enrolled in college or continue to enroll in the coming term. Again, the goal of this is in large part because we don't want to see foster youth dropping out of school or unable to enroll when they previously intended to. We don't want to see this crisis set us back in terms of our overall goals of improving educational outcomes for foster youth. So we ask that, as you think about who you're going to be making referrals to or referrals for, that you really think about, is this an essential need that, if not addressed, would potentially result in them dropping out of school or otherwise having their educational trajectory disrupted? And then to the other public and private resources are not available. Again, we know there's a lot of other money coming. There's a lot of money coming through the college campuses right now for emergency needs. There's private philanthropically funded programs. There's economic stimulus payments. And so we ask that this be a fund of last resort and that referring agencies really do their due diligence to address those needs in whatever other sources might be available before making a referral. And then finally, recipients must be referred by an approved agency. Next slide. So who can be a referring agency? So there's basically two categories. A college campus foster youth support program. So this is a program that lives on a college campus and specifically supports foster youth, or a nonprofit organization that serves the eligible population. You also must be able to verify that students meet the eligibility criteria. So Together We Rise, who's going to be receiving these referrals, is not going to be asking for you as a referring agency to submit evidence that the youth was in foster care or evidence that the youth is enrolled in college. We are relying on you as the referring agency to do that verification and to only refer students that meet the eligibility criteria. So we want to make this as streamlined and easy as possible for the youth. We didn't want them to have, this is an emergency fund, which means that the need for money is urgent. And so we didn't want that process to get bogged down in having to submit all kinds of verification to Together We Rise. So we've structured it this way, but that means that we are relying on you and trusting you as a referral agency that you have fully verified that the students meet the eligibility criteria before you refer them over. And we are trusting that you have done that once a referral is received. Finally, the eligible agencies must be located in California. This fund is limited specifically to California. And then the next slide. So how do you become a referring agency? I will be sending a link to everybody who's on this webinar after the webinar is over later this afternoon, and you will complete the form if you believe that you qualify to make referrals. The form is fairly simple. Few things to note. Number one, only one form should be submitted per agency. So if you have multiple people who registered for this webinar, please check with other folks in your agency and coordinate about who is going to be submitting the request to ensure that every agency only submits one form. Also, I want to share that service will be provided on a first-come, first-served basis. So we are not going to be sort of receiving a whole bunch of requests and then batching them in some way and trying to prioritize which ones come first. Again, we are counting on you to use discretion and to be judicious in defining what an emergency is. And so, we ask again that you really limit the referrals that you make to the fund once you've been approved to those students who truly have a very urgent emergency need, because we're not going to be assessing that or prioritizing. We're relying on you to do that. When you fill out the form, there's going to be a few things that you're going to be asked to agree to. As I've already said, you're going to agree that you're going to verify eligibility for every person that gets referred. You're going to agree that you're going to utilize any other options that are available for emergency support prior to making a referral. And you're going to agree that you're going to make referrals only for emergency needs. Once you've submitted the form, I'm expecting we're going to get a lot of forms over the next couple of days. So we're going to do our best to process those as quickly as we possibly can. My goal is that we process all of those by the end of the day on Friday and let you know that you have been approved as a referring agency. Forms that come in next week, we'll probably be able to process relatively quickly after that initial onslaught that I'm expecting will come in the next day or two. If you have questions about the referral process, and these are questions specifically about how to become a referring agency, we've created an email there, emergencyfund@jbay.org. Now, Together We Rise, who I'm going to turn this over to in just a minute, is going to be talking about the process that you would use to refer students to them, and questions about the referral process of students should be directed to Together We Rise. So we at JBay are handling the part of the process we're approving the agencies. And so questions about that agency referral process you can direct to this emergency fund email should those arise. So with that, and I do see there's a number of questions that have come in, and some of those might be addressed as we go along, and if not, we'll get to all of those questions at the end of the presentation. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Together We Rise.
Hello, everyone. It's Gianna. I'm the Executive Director at Together We Rise, have been in this position for about 7 years now. I'm very excited to be part of this initiative to the emergency response needs of foster youth, specifically ones in college and secondary education. Mario, if you would like to go to the next slide. All right, today Mario is going to be talking. I'm going to just introduce, if you're not familiar with who Together Rise is, and since from the beginning, our emergency response to COVID and how it's affecting the foster care community. And then Mario will go into more of the program and how the rapid response program is going to be working. Next slide. All right, so those for you not familiar with Together We Rise, we are a nationwide nonprofit. Our vision is just to improve the way children and youth experience foster care in America. We're based in California, that's our main focus, but we do have nationwide initiatives. We help about 100,000 youth and children a year throughout our different programs. We just want to create ways where we help children and youth who are navigating foster care without being a foster parent or without asking for that adoption, because there's so many other things that we can do to help these youth that doesn't require that. So that's kind of Together Rise's vision and mission. We have various programs, but we do have a scholarship program, which we call the Family Fellowship, which kind of led into this, which helped us curve our COVID response initiative. So if you want to go to the next slide, Mario. So we have a scholarship program called the Fellowship, which provides not just tuition money, but wraparound services such as mentoring, internships, and things like that, and case management. Since COVID started in early March, Together We Rise pivoted our fellowship and scholarship team and our what we call our impact team to address the needs that COVID-19 was bringing to the foster care community. So right away, we started offering free housing. We were paying for Airbnbs, hotels. We were setting up host homes for them. We were giving them $60 a week to support themselves with groceries. We were partnered with JetBlue to get them relocation if they were in out-of-state colleges. We were paying for their utilities so that they can make sure their Wi-Fi was still met. So since the very beginning, Together We Rise has pivoted to the emergency response of COVID and its impact on foster care. And then thanks to the Stewart and NJ Bay for bringing us all together and saying, what can we do and how can we work together to address the needs on a bigger scale. So I'm very, very excited to be launching this initiative with them, and thanks to them. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mario to talk about this new rapid response program and how it can help the youth you serve.
Thank you, Gianna. So we will be discussing the new program. It's the Rapid Response Program being initiated by Together We Rise. So our Rapid Response Program is a California initiative and our commitment to provide immediate support to our youth. We are hoping to get a response to these youth after they've submitted the referral and we have time to review and assess that. We're planning to have a 24-hour response time to their needs. As Gianna mentioned, we've been running this national program for a while, and we've been pretty successful at responding within that 24-hour period. So as we're pivoting, we're making our adjustments, and we have developed our structures so that all immediate needs are addressed and serviced within that 24-hour period. The list of services we are planning to offer will be similar to what we've already mentioned before as part of our continued services. We will be adding healthcare and mental health assistance, technology and educational assistance, general educational expense, and providing each student with a much grander resource list specifically to California and specifically to the locations that they're listed. On top of that, we'll continue to provide our emergency support and housing support for those individuals. We will continue to provide a grocery stipend or a grocery gift card so that the students can use those funds and alleviate any meal insecurities. We will continue to provide personal expenses and utilities, have those taken care of and paid for. And then if there's any relocation that has to happen within the state, we will be able to partner either with our current partners or continue our efforts to help the student relocate and find housing and find a support system that's nearby to them. So this illustration highlights what our steps are going to be. It starts on the top left. That's the student in need. And as previously mentioned by Debbie, the student will be in need, will come to the campus staff. The campus staff will then complete a referral form that will be sent to Together We Rise. Upon receiving that referral at Together We Rise, there will be an automated email that will go out to campus staff as an authorization, as a confirmation that the email has been received and that we will continue with the services of the youth. And the student will also receive an email. The student email will be a little different. The student email will contain a needs assessment survey, and I'll explain a little bit more into what that will be. And the student will also have availability to schedule a day and time with the Together We Rise staff at the earliest convenience. That phone call will be just a quick review of the needs assessment survey. We want to just get a better understanding. If we have any questions, that'll be time to answer those questions. We don't anticipate these phone calls lasting long. It'll just be a quick assessment of what the student's needs are, confirmation that all the information is correct, that they live in whatever city, whatever state, and these are the services available to the student. And then immediately after, Together We Rise will be able to provide the direct services to the youth, and include everything that was mentioned prior. So we'll jump into a little bit more detail on what that is. The referral process, step by step. So step one, which was already mentioned, is making sure that you as a referral agency are verifying the student and providing that referral to us. So we'll jump over this slide. It's kind of a repeat of what we've already done, but it's very important that that first step happens, so that then step two, you're able to complete this referral form and submit that to Together We Rise. Upon submitting that, Together We Rise will have an assessment of the student's urgent and non-urgent needs. So we have listed housing, grocery, insecurity, meal support as urgent needs. So anything immediately impacting the student's continuation in their current high school or college trajectory, we will address that to make sure that those services are taken care of. If the student is transitioning into college over the summer, we want to make sure that the youth is prepared to make that transition into the college atmosphere, and are going to be looking to address any urgent needs that are required. Same thing with a college student. If we do have a college youth that is homeless, we will make sure that that is addressed within an immediate timeline, and continue to provide them with grocery support and additional assessments as required. And then moving on, as part of the referral form that you will receive from Debbie, it will require that all programs capture this information from the student and record this as part of a referral that will come to Together We Rise. So we'll ask for name, basic first and last name, email address, telephone number, the city and the state, just so that we can get narrow down the resources to what specific location they're in. We want to know the college enrollment status. It's not required, but we want to know if they're currently enrolled, and if they're not enrolled, it'll just give us a better way to assess the student's needs. It will not discount or discontinue the student from continuing with services. The referral will also include information for urgent and non-urgent needs, and then a knowledge of what services the student has access so far. As the referring agency, if you have provided any additional resources to the youth, there will be a section on this referral form to note that, so that we're aware we don't have to duplicate services if they're already being provided by the college. Likewise, if there are services that are not being offered, we will step in and we will fill in that gap, so that the student is getting that holistic approach to making sure all their needs are solved, and we're thinking of everything and collectively providing solutions to the youth's needs. And then step three is the confirmation emails. Some of these emails will be directed, unfortunately, to spam folders. So make sure that you as an agency staff are reviewing your spam folder and checking that it is not spam, so you continue to receive emails directly into your inbox. And notify the student that some of our emails may end up in the spam box originally, if they can just make that assessment, so that we can not have that, and we can have that direct service with the student and provide them those immediate services. So agency staff will receive one confirmation email verifying the submission. The student will receive that secondary email, and it'll include a needs assessment survey. The referral will have some of the basic information that will give us a sense of what the youth needs. Our needs assessment survey dives a little bit deeper into that and provides a little bit more information for us that will help us navigate through our conversation with the student, and it'll get us a short-term vision for what the students' needs are, and also plan a long-term vision for the students. We want to make sure that we're addressing both, and we're cognizant that this, COVID may last the entire year. How are we prepared to meet those challenges for the rest of the year? This information will help us gather additional resources so that we can provide that long-term support for the student. So as part of step three, we will also be receiving, Together We Rise will be reviewing that information. And then we just want to make sure that all that information is accurate. So the student should be able to provide us all that information. If there's anything that they have questions on, they can go ahead and reach out to us, and we can continue the conversation on what those needs are. And afterwards, after the needs assessment is completed, we will be notified on our end. Together We Rise will then be making the payments directly to the student and providing direct services to the student. Together We Rise is requesting to make direct payments on all utilities, travel, housing, etc. We want to make sure that we're able to make those payments directly. We are trying to avoid having to put this money into the hands of the youth, because as we know, not a lot of the times, the money can get lost, money can get misplaced. We want to make sure that we're able to make a direct payment to the youth. And to combat that, we're asking for students Venmo and PayPal. If there is any money that will go to them, it'll be through those systems. But the rest of it we're asking to be for it to be a direct payment to the youth. We will be providing a grocery stipend, which will be scheduled on a bi-weekly basis, and that will be deposited via Venmo or PayPal. And there may be additional accommodations afterwards. We may also provide a student with grocery gift cards if that is what they prefer. We want to give the students flexibility, not just to purchase those immediate groceries, but if they need any PPE equipment or any additional support, they can have some flexibility with funding to provide that. Kind of as an overview of things that we're not going to be able to provide at this time. We won't be providing funds directly for insurances, for non-essential expenses, which include entertainment, leisure, vice, and gambling. We will not provide direct funding for large amounts. So it goes back to the example, if the student is asking for $1,000 for rent, we are not going to give the student $1,000 direct cash in their pocket. There's a lot that can go wrong there. We would prefer to make those payments directly. Together We Rise will not make personal payments on loans, student debt, or cash loans. We will not provide assistance to non-essential medical procedures, and child care, elderly care, and funding anybody else besides the student will not be allowed. There are a lot of case-by-case situations that will arise, so we'll address those as they come to us. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions regarding this, so we are looking to provide a service and kind of gear it towards the student's academic needs. If the academic need of the student is being impacted by whatever the upcoming urgent need is, we'll address it, we'll assess it, and we'll see if there is a way to address those with the funding that is available. Together We Rise is also going to provide additional resources and kind of tutorials on how to go about running these state programs and other future state programs. A lot of this information might already be provided by the college campus. I know a lot of college campuses are already offering services for CalFresh or possibly have a food bank on campus. A lot of our students are already receiving healthcare or Medicaid, Medi-Cal and whatnot. We just want to make sure that the students have access to this. And if for whatever reason the student is not aware of these services, does not know how to access these services, we will provide them with the resource list to make sure they're applying for these state and federal government programs. If any future programs arise where COVID response 5-10 months from now, we'll be able to make assessments and provide additional resources to the youth, along with a lot more resources that we have gathered on our Together We Rise webpage. We will provide a link to everybody to kind of show what those resources are. And we just want to make sure that all resources are available to the youth and that we have a discussion with the youth about how to access the resources that are listed there. As part of our services, this is kind of an overview of what our case management timeline will look like with each individual. The first week will be our direct assessment with the youth. We will provide the needs assessment survey to the youth. We will address their needs, and hopefully within that first week, within that 24-hour response period, we will address all the needs that the student is requesting. From there, the second week, we'll be doing follow-up with the youth and submitting a demographic survey to them to get a little bit more information about them, where they're from, what additional services might be required in the future. By week 3, our case management team is looking to create a long-term educational assessment with the youth, understanding that a lot of things have changed with COVID, understanding that colleges may be closing for the fall, maybe additional employment may change. A lot of things have changed. We want the youth to create a short assessment for what their educational goals are going to be. This information will eventually be shared back with the referral program, that is the referring agency, so that they have information on the student's long-term trajectory, and we can provide that long-term success plan for the youth. So that'll be introduced on week 3. On week 4, we want to finalize our long-term strategy with the youth, and hopefully by that point address any long-term housing needs, any long-term grocery support, continue to provide them with additional services through this time, and then schedule a 3-month follow-up with the youth, so that by week 15, we'll schedule another follow-up with the youth to see if there are any services that need to be addressed at that point. how our student success plan has developed, if there are any changes that we need to make to that. The idea is that we're just continuing to provide a long-term approach to the solutions, to the needs of the youth, and providing those long-term solutions for the youth at hand. And then as part of our post follow-up with our programs and our campus staff, we want to make sure that we're reaching out to you all at the end of the month, providing you a snapshot of the youth that were referred to our program, providing you the snapshot of what services were provided and what their long-term needs may be, so that we can collectively work to address these long-term solutions. We're hopeful that between now and the summer, we can get all of our youth transitioned into the fall semester with ease, and we're going to try as hard as we can to make sure that happens. We understand that things may change, but we want to make sure that collectively as a whole, we're all trying to support these youth one way or another, and encouraging them to have this collaboration with Together We Rise, with their partner agencies and other agencies and other resources that are out there, so that we're providing a comprehensive wraparound service for each youth. And so finally, our last slide has email information and contact information for Together We Rise. So myself, Mario, will be responsible for assisting the team in supporting a lot of the youth that are going to be reaching out to us. So my email is there, and our rapid response coordinators are also listed there. So on this phone call, one of you may be receiving an email from one of us three. Just know that we are all a team, and we're all going to be working to provide the rapid response to the youth. And we will be adding additional staff as this continues to grow and expand a bit further. We do have a text line at the bottom. If you do have any questions directly to the student needs or the rapid response needs, feel free to text that number. That number will come to Together We Rise, and we will go ahead and answer the questions in a timely manner. If you have any general questions regarding Together We Rise, about our programs, about additional information on what we do and what we're about, you can go to info@togetherwerise.org, send us an email, and we'll get back to you. And that concludes this webinar. Debbie, I'll turn this back over to you so we can go over the questions and comments.
Great, thank you so much. So we have a lot of questions. So I'm just going to start going through them. Fortunately, we left a lot of time for Q&A. So some of these I'm going to address myself, others I'm going to put to either Mario or Gianna. So first question, do students have to have been in foster care in California specifically, or can it be anywhere in the states? So if they're going to college in California now, but they were under the jurisdiction of another state when they were in foster care, that's fine. You can go ahead and make that referral. The next question is, in terms of students who are going to be enrolling in the upcoming term, either summer or fall, somebody wants to know, is this for next summer or fall? I heard that all university classes are being canceled for the fall. That is not my understanding. I think, there was an announcement yesterday from the CSUs that their classes are going to all be online in the fall, but they're happening and students can still enroll. And to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any colleges that are shutting down and not offering classes at all. It might just be that the classes are online. So yes, this is for the coming term. The next question is whether they need to have been in care for a specific duration of time to be eligible. No, there's no specific duration of time that they would need to have been in foster care. Next question I'm going to put to Gianna. Would a student who's graduating this term, spring 2020, be eligible to be referred to the fund?
Yes, they will be eligible even if they are graduating this spring. It might change their timeline a little bit about still receiving services, but we will continue with the rapid response with them for the first 4 weeks because it is they're still part of the emergency, but as they graduate and move on, their trajectory will be different.
Great. There is a question about how much money is in the fund. So we have about $450,000 available. We're continuing to fundraise to try to expand that amount of money. Another question about whether we plan on limiting the number of referring agencies accepted. We do not plan to limit the number of referring agencies accepted, but again, just as a reminder, we ask that you be judicious and discerning in terms of the extent to which you utilize the fund so that it can go as far as possible. The next question is for Mario. Will you be sharing the student assessment results with the referring agencies?
Yeah, we'll be sharing that information with the agencies at an end of month report. And it'll also include the youth that were referred from that agency to us. So we will provide that information.
Great. Next question for you, Mario. With the phone call with students, will the student call in, or would they receive a call from you? And if they receive a call, would it come from a blocked number?
The student will be receiving a call from us, and it likely will not come from a blocked number. I know with my phone, for example, some of the calls come in, but they go to voicemail because of a setting that's set up on the phone. So we might have to place an additional call to the youth, maybe 2 to 3 times for them to answer, but we will be placing the calls for the youth.
Great. The next question for you, Mario, is do you have a sense of how long services will be provided, specifically the recurring ones like the biweekly grocery stipend?
Yes, so we're going to be providing at least a 1-month support, and then look into providing them a long-term assessment. So, for example, with groceries, we can provide that immediate support for the first 2 weeks, and since it'll be bi-weekly, it'll cover that entire month. If we can get the student service through CalFresh or possibly a food bank or additional resources, that's going to be our target so that we can provide that long-term solution for the youth. So we're looking into providing that 1-month assessment for the youth. If possible, it can extend further. In some cases, it may be lessened, but we will be providing at least that ongoing support for the youth for the first month, and will be reassessed thereafter.
Great. And then, well, and some of these you may have kind of addressed further along. Some of these questions came in earlier in your presentation, but I think maybe they might be worth repeating. Will referring agencies get a final email informing them about what services and support the student received from Together We Rise?
Yes, there'll be a report submitted at the end of the month. And then at the end, after the student's case has been closed after those 15 weeks, we will send a final summary of the services provided to the youth.
Great. Okay, the next question is about, I believe the question is about the types of educational institutions where a student can be enrolled. And so I'll go ahead and answer this question. Really any kind of post-secondary institution. So the obvious ones, of course, are the community colleges, CSUs, UCs. But if a student is at a private college, that's fine too. If they're at a career and technical education training program. So it's really any kind of post-secondary training. But what I would say to that is, I know that there's going to be some gray area maybe with certain kinds of programs. And so you should feel free to reach out to Together We Rise for any particular circumstance to say, hey, does this kind of program have a student at this kind of program? Can I make the referral? I think there's always going to be these kind of gray area questions where there's going to need to be clarification. Not everything fits precisely in the box, and so feel free to reach out to Together We Rise to just confirm, can I make this referral? I'm going to answer a couple eligibility questions. Are students who are in foster care but have been placed in guardianship or adopted, are they still eligible? Yes, as long as they were in foster care at some point. Even if they have since exited foster care, whether that be to a guardianship or adoption, they are eligible. Again, we ask that you kind of work with them to identify the resources they might be able to receive through their guardian or adoptive parent, but we know that sometimes those resources aren't always being made available. Just to clarify, somebody wanted to make sure that the referral is open not just to campus programs, but also to nonprofit organizations. So if you are a nonprofit organization and you work with this population, you can make referrals, but just as a reminder, the referrals would be limited to those individuals that you work with who are college students. I'm just looking through the questions. Just getting a lot of questions coming in here. What if a student is considered a probation youth? So if a student is a probation youth who is considered to also be a foster care youth, you know, and any probation youth who is placed in out-of-home placement is considered to be a foster youth. Those youth can be referred. Now, if it's a probation youth who never got referred to out-of-home placement, so they ended up on probation and they remained living with their biological parents or something like that, those students wouldn't be eligible. But those that are kind of these dual status youth who are both jointly probation and foster care youth would be eligible. There's a question about, can a foster youth who just turned 26 obtain the resources? Yes, there's no age cap. Is there age eligibility for students who are in foster care in terms of when they were in care, like after 13, after 16? No, there's no requirement in terms of when they were in care. Let's see, I see a couple other questions about probation, and so again, I addressed that. Would a current foster youth enrolled in a transitional housing program like THP Plus be eligible? Yeah, there's no restriction against making a referral for somebody who's in THP Plus. Obviously, the expectation would be that you as the housing provider are making the resources available that you have available through this program. Will this webinar be available if we missed a portion? Yes, it is being recorded, and I will send that out. Another question for you, Mario. Many of the programs that will be making referrals have case management services, often very robust, that they already provide. Do youth have to utilize the case management piece provided by Together We Rise, or how will that kind of intersect? That's for Mario.
Yeah, so I think the first 2 to 3 weeks will be important, just so that we're providing that comprehensive support to the youth. And we'd gladly be willing to reach out to any case management programs to address any continuing services thereafter. So they don't necessarily have to follow the entire process all the way through, but we do want some communication with the youth to make sure that all their services are taken care of within that first month. And thereafter, we can turn them back over to the college campus case management team, and they can continue supporting the youth thereafter.
Great. There's some questions about kind of what types of expenses are considered eligible. And, you know, there's definitely going to be some, again, this has to be an emergency need that's a necessity for the youth to be able to continue with their enrollment in college. So just to give a couple of scenarios based on either what's been sent in or other ideas is that, so one question is, would a printer or scanner be eligible? And, you know, the answer to all of these is going to be, it depends. Is that something that's absolutely essential for them to be able to remain enrolled in school? If not, then that probably wouldn't be considered an emergency. Similarly, like in terms of rent payments, if a student is behind in their rent right now, then that would be an emergency need. But if they're trying to receive funding to pay rent for 3 months into the future, you know, that probably wouldn't be considered an emergency need. So a question for you, Mario, the text line. Can the text line be shared with students if they're enrolled in the program. So I'm assuming that means that a student has already been referred to the program. What do you want sort of that communication to look like, Mario?
The student will have access to Together We Rise staff phone numbers and emails, and our phone numbers will be text lines as well. So they should be able to communicate with us via phone call, via email, or via text. So they can share the phone number that's there, and that will be shared amongst the staff and the specific staff addressing that student's needs. So you can either share the one that's there, and additional to that, the student will be getting the specific staff that will be dealing with their cases as we continue to provide services to them.
Great. And just to kind of add to the response that Mario gave previously about sort of the intersection between case management services at a campus or a program and what Together We Rise is providing, you know, this is really about collaboration, and it's not about Together We Rise replacing the case management services for some period of time. You know, the campus or the organization should be in close communication with Together We Rise and really kind of figuring out where are the gaps that Together We Rise can fill versus what's being provided by the referring partner, and really work in collaboration. Mario, there's a question about, is there a minimum or maximum length of time that you'll be working with youth?
So we will be working directly with the youth for the first month within that 4-week time frame. Thereafter, we will schedule follow-ups as needed. We're anticipating there may be a couple of youth that may require additional follow-up maybe a couple of weeks after that first month. So we'll schedule that out. But it'll be like an immediate, intense 1-month follow-up, and then thereafter as needed. And it'll pretty much carry through the summer as we prepare to get them started for the next school year.
I think we might have lost Debbie. Mara, are you still with me?
Yep, still with you. I think we might have lost Debbie. And I know she was reading off the questions. I believe she was the respondent to all those questions. If you all do have any questions, I suggest you write them in the chat box. We will have an FAQ sent out after this meeting. This webinar will also be recorded, so all our answers are already here. That will be shared with everybody. And then our FAQ will create, we'll answer all the questions that were already placed here, along with any questions that come up in the future. And so, yeah, if there's nothing else, we'd like to thank you all for joining this webinar. We thank you all so much for the support that we're offering these youth. Gianna, did you have any final comments?
I think we covered it. Again, we'll be sending out the full presentation and a frequently asked questions, kind of all the questions you guys asked. So you'll have that, and you can always reach out to, you have our information now, you can reach out to us if you have questions about the students, and then reach out to Debbie if you have questions about becoming a referrer. But other than that, thank you for attending. We look forward to serving the youth that you guys work with. And the collaboration and addressing the needs in this challenging time. So thanks for joining. Have a good day, everybody.
Hi, can people hear me?